What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mystic's MMOs. I'm your host, Mystic Raven. Alright, so I'm going to go Sky Shard hunting, and I'm going to, I guess, put some personal information out there, personal experiences. I typically don't like to do this. I've always said, a lot of times I want to stick to what I'm covering in a game in that perspective. But, I think everybody's lives have changed dramatically since the pandemic. But for me, my life really hasn't altered that much other than staying more isolated than I typically do. And I have no problem with isolation, unfortunately, because I've had to endure the most craziest of lives. And it's been an interesting experience throughout my life. And I'm not trying to say everybody has their own experiences. So we based our opinions off of what? Those experiences. So in every essence, we can be a little biased based on experience alone. And I'm no exception to that rule, but I do give credit, or I can be somewhat objective based on other observations. But my life at 13 years old, okay, so I'm not dating. I'm single. I've been single for the last year now. I was dating somebody prior to the pandemic, and then it didn't work out. But I've actually used, I know this is kind of sad, I've used the pandemic to justify not dating. And I'm actually not interested in dating. And the main reason for that is my experiences with the dating. 5 years old. I had a kid when I was 13 years old. Okay, with a slightly older woman. And she got impregnated. My child was born, but I didn't get to raise my child because she moved out of the state. And that took its toll on me. It took a very hefty toll on me at a very influential age and everything else, because there was a lot of expectations placed on my shoulders. And in being that, I rebelled. Because my life was filled with disappointments. Now, it didn't end there for me. Because of that experience, I dated other older women at a very young age. And because I was, I guess, conditioned in such a way, I had a problem connecting with individuals. Because I could never take anything serious. I never saw anything from a long-term perspective because everything in my life was fleeting. Right? It was a fleeting experience of my life. So I never could become attached or dependent on anything. And all of a sudden, that transitioned into more intellectual, time. Like, basically, I used self-medication to cope. So to say I was fucked up is an understatement. And the only time I wasn't, on something at the time, I would have to do things to keep my mind occupied. And because my mind's racing a million miles per hour, and because of that factor, I got into role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and I play chess, anything from a strategic standpoint. So so long as it kept my mind occupied, that's what I did. Now, as I progressed from middle school to high school, to say I was arrogant, conceited, is also an understatement, because I always got, I guess, attention. It was actually unwanted majority of the time. So to say that I dated a lot of people at a younger age is, I like basically I became very jaded. Very, 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 very. It was just it was terrible. Um, my attitude and how I perceive things. So, needless to say, I never wanted to make a commitment because at that age, I felt like every commitment I made was just what people wanting to, you know, have a security association to the title. It made them feel like, you know, that, but people can cheat. People can do whatever. Now, I'm not a cheater. That's why another reason I never believed in commitment because, you know, I grew up with a very, you know, moral sense of, you know, if you're committed or you're married, you know, those are very important vows and commitments. Meaning, you know, if you're not happy, don't betray an individual's trust. It's better to walk away than to betray an individual. So I have that you know instilled in me. You know, I went to a Catholic school. You know, I had a mixed background where I went to a Baptist church and a Catholic church. So there's a lot of morals instilled in me. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody because I've made mistakes. Obviously, being promiscuous was one of them. But because of that also and my lifestyle, things changed dramatically all the time. And every time they did, I would retreat. Right? I would retreat. And because I never wanted to feel sorry for myself. I never wanted to take things like I just wanted to keep my mind occupied. That's it. Simple. Keep occupied. You know, keep it occupied. So I became sober. I've been sober for over 20 something years. And but it was important to keep my mind occupied during moments in which we all have struggles, right? Do something constructive and not let those negative associations bring you down. And MMOs for me have been that. MMOs have been a way to escape escape reality. You know, the sense of what's going on negative in our lives. And I think a lot of people do that. It's not just about like for me, I don't want to date anymore. Right now. I'm completely at this point in my life where I feel people are too selfish to even hold relationships. I know people who are married and married for the wrong reasons. Right? They're miserable. They're literally miserable. They are. And I'm like, why? Because they have to maintain the facade. Right? They have to. Or the convenience becomes, you know, too much for them to walk away from. And that's just not me. I'm not my happiness doesn't depend on somebody being, you know, in my life. Now I'm detached. I am a detached individual. And I admit this freely. I just everything I've ever gotten myself into, like I said, it's been fleeting. There's nothing been concrete. There's nobody that's ever really proven to me the commitment that I'm willing to invest. So why make such a commitment when the other person cannot? You know? And I feel like that's always the case. I always tell my friends, be careful because if something changes in your life, would your relationship? Because if your relationship changes due to the circumstances, then that's a, you know, telling, you know, tale within itself about how they value you. And I always wanted my girls to be more independent and more confident about their decisions regardless of, you know, what's going on in their world. And like I said, it's been a retreat. This has been my refuge. MMOs have been a refuge for me in multiple ways. A coping mechanism to keep my mind occupied during, you know, turmoil. You know, I don't feel, you know, a sense of loneliness or detached or being isolated or disregarded. I don't have any of these associations. And everybody's like, well, maybe you can't date. I had, listen, once again, I was very promiscuous, but I understood where it was for me. Women never took me serious. They just never did. I was a boy toy. Simply put, I was a boy toy. I wanted to be more, but unfortunately, it never was going to be. And because of that, and because I was aware of how people, perceived me, I just decided not to entertain it anymore. I get somebody's like, oh, it must be awesome. Why? It's not. There becomes a void in your life that no matter what you do, right? Being an attractive individual comes with a price as well. I just tell people that, being attractive isn't always a good thing. There's bad things to that association as well. I mean, I don't know. But at the end of the day, man, I've always loved just the dependent, knowing that I could put my head into a fantasy world, occupy my intelligence, and be content, right? Be content in my refuge. And I think and be happy. That's even the most craziest thing. The people are like, are you miserable? And I'm like, no. You sure? Yeah. Why would I be miserable? I see things for how they are. I'm a realist. And because of that, I'm much more content not having to play to the facade of something that's not, that's, I just love it. I see so many people struggle, and this has been my refuge time and time again. Yo, Sylvia, I'll hit you up later. Have a good stream. Just wanted to say hi. All right, awesome. I'm doing the whole training thing. Well, congratulations. I hope everything's going well. But yeah, pretty much, and I tell people, we all have our own experiences, right? We all have a coping mechanism, a way of dealing with things. Some more healthier, more constructive than others, for sure. For sure. But at the end of the day, if we allow things to consume us, right, then that's not good either. And I always tell my kids, you're just trading one addiction for another, right? I'm like, I've done stuff that's been a little questionable. It's like, but do I blame everybody? Not really. Do I blame the circumstance? That's why I don't want a pity party. It's like, look, I don't need a pity party, honestly. It is what it is. I understand the reality of the circumstances. So I'm not asking to change it. If someone's like, oh, you can change it. Not really. I just feel like at the end of the day, you have to accept, people's observations as well. We're a society that we still cling, right, to this mannerisms and what's acceptable and who in our social circles, and all of these factors they pertain, right? And I have taught my girls as a single father, don't become dependent on a man to take care of you, because you need to be happy with yourself more than anything. Because no matter what happens in that relationship, if you're happy with yourself, you're never going to allow somebody to take your happiness from you. You're not becoming so dependent on, another individual to obtain happiness. Because when you have happiness outside of a relationship and you're confident in who you are, people notice that. Like, Why is that person happy? They're not with anybody. They're not whatever. And it's like, do you need to be? No, you don't need to be. But, you know, find, when things get overwhelming, find something to occupy your mind. Think of something to, you know, take that stress and do something a little bit more constructive. You know, don't do anything harmful to yourself. Find a way to redirect your thoughts. And don't let the emotions overwhelm you. Because we all can become emotional. We all can experience, you know, that. And I honestly think at the end of the day, MMOs have been a way for me to overcome a number of issues that I wouldn't have rather addressed, you know, like it, because there was no addressing the circumstances, just none. You know, you can't control everything. You can't change everything, right? You can't. It's just life. It's just life. So this has always been my refuge. No matter what game I ever played, that's what I've always come back to. Oh, I thought I was out of it. I've always come back to something to occupy my mind. Something to, you know, and like the pandemic, like, I had a couple of different females who wanted me to go out with them and stuff. I'm like, oh, damn it, I can't. Yeah, pandemic and all, you know? They're like, oh. And I've done some crazy things. Like, sometimes I'd get, like, really angry about the hypocrisy. And I would send random social media invites with my profile picture and see how many females would accept just based on my profile picture. And I get all these accepts, not even meeting these people in life at all. And it would make me be like, the hypocrisy of it all. You know, men are pigs. Anybody can be a pig. Anybody can be self-absorbed. Anybody can be... It's not men. It's not just men. It's not just women. It could be anybody. Oh, so that it. But my thing to anybody, and why am I doing this? Why? Because I feel like a lot of times people allow things to get to them, right? And you know, to people out there, don't let things weigh on you. You know, don't become too. Like I said, people will do what they will do. You know? I tell people, you can make every right decision in your life and everything still turn out wrong. You can do everything for the best intentions and nothing ever came, you know, not everything turned out the way you had anticipated. And that's life. That's life. Right? That is life. So find something to occupy your mind in those moments. Something that is safe and constructive, not destructive. Because at the end of the day, right, you're valued by somebody. You might not think it, but you are. The MMO community, why I love the MMO community so much. There's people who hate me in this, on this on this game. Some people who do, but there's other people who enjoy me, who enjoy my perspective, my insight, my builds, and that's my community. That's my connection. That's my social network. Because we share a similar passion. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Someone, somewhere appreciates you. I can promise that. Even when it seems like the world is against you, somebody there appreciates you for being who you are. And that should matter. That should make a world of a difference. Because sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes we're in such a funk that we don't even know if anybody even cares. Right? Like, nobody cares. No, people do. Somebody out there does. I can promise you that. And don't lose hope. Find something that you connect with. And I can promise you, there's other people there connecting to the same thing for the same reasons. Maybe different circumstances, but for similar reasons. And that's where we bond. That's how we find bonds. And that's how we connect. And we then just, guess what? Have our own social network. Our own experiences. Something more positive and less negative. So I always tell people, MMOs is to me, a positive coping mechanism. It's not ideal in sometimes way. It can be somewhat, addicting. Especially for somebody like me who is so detached. I'm detached as hell. I'm jaded as hell. But for me, I relish, the escape. The ability to just know that there's a world outside of my world that I can have a positive impact on without negative side effects. Because at the end of the day, that's the biggest fear, right? The biggest fear isn't connecting to an individual. The biggest fear is losing the individual you're connected to. I tell my girls, it's not people who let you down. It's your expectations of them that let you down. Because when you expect too much, they can never meet that standard. So whoever you are, wherever you're at in life, no matter what's going on in your world, stay positive, stay focused, and I promise you'll get through it. All right, I'm going to let you guys go. As always, I'm Mr. Craven. This is Mystics MMOs. Have a good one.